Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and welcome back to hashtag AskGSM here today, episode 473 for Wednesday, December 21st, 2022. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great holiday season so far. We are days away from Christmas and a mere week away from the polls closing for the 2022 Year in Review Awards from WWE and AEW over on WrestleRant.com. If you haven't already voted, please go do so on the website. You can vote for the match of the year, male wrestler of the year, female wrestler of the year, feud of the year, shocking moment of the year, and so much more. So if you haven't already, please go vote. We are breaking down the results on the show itself on WrestleRant Radio next Thursday, in 8 days from today. So again, one more reminder, if you haven't already, go vote in the 2022 WWE AEW Year in Review Awards over on WrestleRant.com. But Christmas is coming up on Sunday. We got a lot of great questions before then from you fine folks from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We do have one more episode in 2022. That's coming up next Wednesday. So stay tuned for that as well. We do have today, but the next week is going to be crazy for me. Next Monday, actually, I'm hoping to be at the WWE MSG House Show, the one that they're doing the day after Christmas. There's no Raw next Monday, so I kind of get the best of both worlds. I'm going to a great house show, very likely, not confirmed yet. And not only that, but there's no Raw that I have to catch up on. I'm not really missing anything, which is great. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But if you want to send in a question to the show, you could do so for me to answer right here on hashtag by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post they usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. We'll start with Nike Only here, their question from YouTube. He says, out of all the returns Triple H has brought into WWE, who has been the best return so far, and who has been the worst so far? So, if you're talking about, like, the runs of the returning superstars, like, the returns themselves, the best return itself would probably be Bray Wyatt. He might even be the best return, period. I mean, it has gotten repetitive with him and LA Knight lately and the Uncle Howdy stuff. We really haven't learned anything new from the Uncle Howdy stuff recently. But the return itself was amazing. I'm biased because I was there at Extreme Rules. But like the lead up to it, the execution of the return itself, the immediate fallout from it was awesome. He's still very over. He is still interesting to a certain extent. I don't want to say it's been a bust, but they're dragging it on a little bit too long before he finally wrestles, which I'm not a big fan of. The fact that they're dragging it out this long, I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. He may have had the best return run so far. Braun has shockingly been very over. He's been very over. He has been handled perfectly. The Omos stuff was well done. The Alpha Academy stuff early on when he first came back was well done. Now he's kind of feuding with Gunther over the Intercontinental Championship. All of that stuff has been really, really well done. So, Strowman's return run has exceeded my expectations. Gargano's went well initially, and not that he's been a bust, but they've had him more involved in the Loomis and Miz stuff than his own stuff lately. The Theory feud was, cut way too short. He beat Theory, and then that was it. They didn't continue it. For all the feuds that we get for like fucking 8 months, like Miz and Loomis, for example, the Gargano Theory one was ended way too quickly. He's done fine. Mia Yim has done well as part of the OC. Not a pairing I really thought made a whole ton of sense on paper, but they've made it work so far. Tegan Knox just came back. We just had Bronson Reed return on Monday's Raw. I'm trying to think who else. Loomis's return run so far has been fine on the main roster. There's been a lot of people. Hit Row, the return itself was fine. I was excited to see them. The run that they've had since they've been back has easily been the worst of all the returns so far. Cross has had a decent run. Some might say it's been underwhelming. I wouldn't argue with that. I wouldn't necessarily agree either. I've liked Karrion Kross's run so far. He beat Drew McIntyre at Extreme Rules, lost to him a Crown Jewel. He's been teasing something with Rey Mysterio lately, which I like, so that's been fine. Like I've said before, the jury is still out on a lot of these people, but like the best return run so far would probably have to be Bray. I mean, he's been very over. The return was great. The White Rabbit stuff was awesome. People have been digging what he's been doing for the most part. I like the idea of him feuding with LA Knight. Again, it's been dragging on for way too fucking long. But I'm not like completely against Bray Wyatt ever being on the show. Like, oh, get this guy out of here. The return's been awful, blah, blah, blah. Hit Row's return run has been very underwhelming, but that's probably because they need another member. Some of these people need just better booking, need to be on the show more, need more of a reason for the fans to care about them. there's a lot of reasons why certain returns haven't been white hot, and not everyone's going to be a world champion. I mean, a lot of these people are brought back to play roles on the show. For example, Sarah Logan, for example, she's on the show because she's there to manage the Viking Raiders. I don't want to see her challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship. You know, she's there to manage the Raiders, and that's a role she plays well. I don't want to see her really in the ring at all. She hasn't been great in recent years anyway, so that's perfectly fine with me. Micah Does It, their first question was, if Matt Cardona returns at the Royal Rumble, what do you think of him taking on AJ Styles at WrestleMania 39? That is an incredibly random fucking match. Listen, I honestly am in favor of Matt Cardona coming back. It would probably be as Zack Ryder because he spent so much time in the company as Zack Ryder. He was there as Zack Ryder for what? I mean, he was in the company even longer than he was Ryder, but, you know, he debuted in 07 as one of the Major Brothers. He didn't become Zack Ryder until 2009. Or actually, no, he became Zack Ryder in 07, 08. He didn't become like his own single superstar until 09. So he was Ryder for a good 15 years, maybe? No. 15 years would be like next year. 12 years, 13 years until he was released in 2020. So they would probably just make him Zack Ryder again, but he would have to have a completely different gimmick, not to come back with fucking... I like Kurt Hawkins, but like to reunite them back in WWE as the team they were before wouldn't be a good idea. They would have to be doing what they're doing currently outside of WWE. Like, he's not going to come in, you know, blading himself in every match and bleeding in all these matches and whatever. That's just not going to work. But like, if he comes in as a heel and not doing like the, you know, Long Island Broski gimmick or whatever he was calling it before, I think it could work. I think it could work with the current gimmick with Chelsea Green, maybe even not Matt Cardona. He is Matt Cardona. With Brian Myers, a.k.a. Kurt Hawkins, as a full-on little faction. They have a lot of trios as it is right now. They already have a lot of, you know, decent teams. So they're not exactly necessary as a team, but Ryder coming back with Chelsea Green, who would probably... Oh, no, she would be Chelsea Green because she was Chelsea Green last time, unless they changed her name because they can't own it, I guess. That would be interesting. So... Anyway, the idea of him coming back to face AJ at WrestleMania, I mean, if AJ even gets a singles match at all at WrestleMania would be a miracle based on how he's been booked this year. That is a match that doesn't exactly excite me, but if Cardona came back as a bigger deal, I mean, it would be almost impossible for him to come back as anything less than what he was before he left WWE, because when we last saw him in WWE, he was literally on fucking Main Event with Kurt Hawkins in the undercard of the Raw Tag Team division, getting beaten in handicap matches and shit like that. He would not come back to do that shit. He would have to at least be a mid-carder. Is he going to be a main event world champion? No. Especially not in WWE, I don't think. But, you know, him coming back as like a mid-carder might work. AJ basically is a mid-carder at this point. As a match, it might be good. It's not a feud that overly excites me from AJ to go from facing, you know, The Undertaker in the main event of WrestleMania, and Randy Orton and Edge earlier this year, to Shane McMahon and Chris Jericho, to then fucking Zack Ryder. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I'm going to say no to that, but like I said, to get AJ in the card at all, and anything other than like a Money in the Bank ladder match would be, you know, a welcome change. I mean, I know he's had singles matches in recent years. He had the tag team match 2 years ago. But at the same time, though, he's been doing a whole lot of nothing lately, and I honestly don't have high hopes. He'll be in a prominent match at WrestleMania coming up in April. His second question, with all the rumors of Sasha Banks showing up at Wrestle Kingdom 17 and the rumor of Paige Saraya's mystery partner being Sasha Banks at the Dynamite LA show, do you think we will get Sasha Banks versus Jade Cargill for the TBS Championship at Revolution, and Sasha being Jade's first loss? I'm going to go ahead and say no. I wouldn't hate that, but they have to end Jade's run like soon. Nothing against her. She's an absolute star. It's because I'm actually a fan of her that I'm going to say this, but I feel like she has to lose in order to further that development. I feel like she can't exactly grow as a character, or even in the ring, honestly, until she loses that championship. She's kind of stuck in a holding pattern right now until she finds her next real rival. You know, Nyla Rose was not that person. I enjoyed the Athena feud for as long as that lasted, but that kind of came and went, and that was it. And Athena's a heel anyway. She's doing her best work right now in Ring of Honor. So Sasha would make sense. Sasha and Jade Cargill. Sasha would give Jade her fucking best match ever, at least up to this point. I mean, Jade has been undefeated for so long. It's one of those things like with Roman, where I would rather see her lose to someone that can actually benefit from beating her. Sasha would not benefit. I mean, obviously, Sasha Banks is Sasha Banks. She's already the biggest star. It also wouldn't send the best message. You know, Jade's around beating all the AEW originals from Thunder. I mean, she's not an AEW original, but she beat Thunder Rosa. She beat Ruby Soho. She beat Nyla Rose, Ember Moon, Anna Jay, Ty Conti. And then it's the outsider that everyone associates with WWE coming in and then beating her for the championship. I honestly wouldn't be a fan of Raya beating Jade Cargill for the championship. I feel like it sends the wrong message, at least right off the bat. Like within a month, she becomes champion. I mean, Sasha, if she were to sign with AEW, could she become world champion, women's champion at some point? Absolutely. But to do it off the bat, I feel like would not be the best move for how long and how much they've invested in Jade Cargill. So I'd rather see someone like a Willow Nightingale, honestly, who's already lost to Jade like 3 times, so probably not. Chris Statlander would have been perfect, but again, she's hurt right now, and she will be for a while, so I don't exactly know. I'm not super into that idea of doing the match at that show and then Jade losing. It would be a big deal, and it would be a cool moment for Sasha, but at the same time, though, I feel like you can find other women to kind of fill that void that can actually benefit from beating Jade as opposed to Sasha, who's already a made woman. His next question, why doesn't WWE do their tribute to the troop shows in front of the troops anymore? Honestly, I'm not really sure. I was wondering the same thing watching the show over the weekend, and I'm sure there's a very logical explanation for it. You know, I'm not very well versed in, like, are we overseas? Are we at war right now? Do we have troops in Afghanistan and Iraq? Honestly, I've lost track at this point, so I can't say. The weird thing is that they always used to go to the troops when the show first started in 2003, you know, almost 20 years ago. And they did that up until maybe, I want to say 2011. I feel like they were overseas up until 2010. The 2011 show, I remember being in an arena. The 2012 show was in an arena. A lot of the shows in the 2010s were in an arena. I think the next time they went to actually go see the troops and did a show overseas was not until, I think, 2017. 2017 and 2018, I want to say, they did tribute to the troop shows overseas at, like, actual army bases and shit, which was great. 2019, I think they did too, but they didn't air it anywhere, which was weird. I think 2019 was, like, the only year where they didn't air a tribute to the troop show. And then 2020 was COVID. They did a show, but it was, like, it was in the fucking Thunderdome. And then 2021 last year was also in an arena, so as was this year. I don't know. Honestly, I'm not really sure. Maybe it's a safety thing, or they can't find somewhere that makes sense to do it. I don't know. Just the best part. I mean, obviously those shows are for the troops. That's really the point of it. It's not meant to be like this great wrestling show. But the best part of watching those shows for someone like me was the different environment and being overseas. And again, it puts them at risk, so I wouldn't say, oh, go overseas just for my own entertainment. But, like, they can go to different bases here in the States that aren't in an actual arena, tape the show after a SmackDown fucking from 4 weeks ago, and then air it on a random Saturday in December. I mean, they did have troops there. They did the video packages we see every year. Those are great. As far as the environment, it would be nice if they didn't do it in front of actual fans. I mean, a lot of those people have no ties to the military or the Navy or the Army or whatever. Doing it at actual bases only in front of, you know, the troops, I think would be really cool. Doing that again. Again, I don't know the logistics behind it, but I was wondering the same thing watching the show on Saturday. Billy's got a 3-part question here. With the release of Mandy Rose, could she thrive wrestling outside of WWE and without toxic attraction? He also asks, where do you see Gigi Dolan and JC Jane going now? And he also asks, could you see them moving to the main roster and Charlotte stepping into Mandy's role? All over the place here. Charlotte stepping into Mandy's role, absolutely not. I don't want to see them take a group that was Mandy's and then give it to anyone else, unless it made a lot of sense. Charlotte, I guess it would give her something to do, but Charlotte, I mean, the whole point of Toxic Attraction is the whole sex appeal part of the group. They're not out there, like, getting naked like Mandy was on her OnlyFans or Fan Time or whatever it was, but, you know, it's like the Diva era, but not really. It's not like I'm not, like, petitioning for bras and panties matches, but the gimmick they were doing, some of it was a little like, okay, let's stop objectifying the women here, but at least in 2022, early on, it was kind of like that. I feel like in the NXT 2.0 era, it was all about, oh yeah, look how sexy we are. That is the gimmick, but they've toned that down a little bit, and it's a bit more, I don't want to say appropriate, but it makes more sense. Like, they're doing it just the right amount on TV. So I wouldn't want to see them take that group and give it to anyone else. I think Gigi and JC at this point, their best bet is just going at it alone. Is their future as secured as it would have been with Mandy? No, it's not. Charlotte has never been on TV, that sexy character. I mean, that wouldn't even make any sense anyway. She's like the complete antithesis of what Toxic Attraction was. So that wouldn't exactly work. They'll be called up, I'm sure. They will be called up. They need more women's teams on the main roster. They've already done all there is to do in NXT. So they will be called up soon. They were already on SmackDown twice a couple of months ago. They'll just be called up without Mandy, and the only thing they'll be doing is doing the tag team stuff, which is a shame, because at least if they were with Mandy, they can associate with her, be involved in the SmackDown Women's Championship picture. I just hope they don't break them up or, disband the group or whatever. They can still work as a team, but we all know how WWE, Triple H, Vince, doesn't matter, views that women's tag team division. It is not a priority. So they can have a couple matches with fucking Damage Control, and then the other team on SmackDown, Liv and Tegan Nox, whatever teams are left, Raquel and Shotzi, and that'll probably be it, unfortunately. But they'll still be called up just without anyone else, and I wouldn't put anyone else with them, and it's a real risk, but they're talented enough, I think, to make it work. As far as the Mandy Rose part of your question, will she thrive outside of WWE? I mean, she already is. It came out the other day that without even taking a single bump on that page that she has where all of this shit went down, she's making $500,000. Now, is that sustainable? Is this momentum sustainable? I don't think she'll be making $500,000 every week going forward. I can't imagine that. I imagine it's probably just peaked because of all the interest in what's going on. I mean, there's a lot of people, I will say, that are willing to pay, I think, $40 a month for whatever content she's putting out. Hey, God bless those people, and God bless Mandy Rose. I mean, she's getting that fucking bag. Good for her. I think I have no shame towards that whatsoever. If she wants to go ahead and do that and make more money doing that than wrestling, I think that's great. Could she go somewhere else like an AEW where they don't have the Mattel sponsorship? I could see them probably hiring her. If Tony Khan doesn't see an issue with what she's doing is fine. The problem was what she was doing within the confines of WWE. It's a PG product. People saying, oh, it's a shoot. They tell her to amp up the sex appeal, but then fire her for this. I mean, you people are fucking dumb. I mean, look at it. It's not even the exact same thing. She put out nudity in borderline, I don't want to say porn or whatever, but a lot of the videos and photos she was putting out were not what people think. People think, oh, she put up a picture of her in lingerie, and that was worth firing her over. I mean, that's not even remotely the same thing, so give me a break. She's been doing that for years anyway. They didn't fire her before, so that doesn't even really make sense. But anyway, maybe she could go to AEW. I'm not going to completely rule out the possibility. If I had to make a prediction, she will be back in WWE potentially as soon as 2023, maybe not in January. But I could see her being back by maybe mid next year, late next year. I could totally see that. Whether they work something out where she doesn't do as much nudity and she can still have her page, or she just stops doing it altogether. Like Zelina Vega, it's not the exact same thing, but her big issue is that she didn't want to stop doing her cameo and Twitch page and whatever. And I imagine Mandy Rose is probably or was making more money than Zelina was, because Zelina was a manager. She was on the main roster, but I assume Mandy Rose was probably making more money than her. Zelina was trying to, make some extra income and whatever. Zelina wasn't doing nude, the stuff that Mandy Rose was fucking doing was not exactly the same thing at all that Zelina was doing. I think Zelina's case was a bit more bullshit because it was like Twitch, and they couldn't let her go on Twitch. That's fucking dumb. That was ridiculous. And now, thankfully, they allow that sort of stuff from what I understand. But she ended up coming back. I thought under the provision that she could still do that stuff, but I don't think she's done her OnlyFans. Maybe she does OnlyFans, I don't know. But she certainly hasn't Twitched at all, if that's the right way to go about it. She hasn't been on her Twitch channel at all since she came back over a year ago, so I don't know if Mandy would completely give that up. Listen, I would run this thing dry, make as much money off of it as you possibly can, and then if you want to continue to wrestle, which I think she would, because she was doing great before she got fired, then go back. It's as simple as that. I'm sure they would welcome her back with open arms. They could certainly use her on the main roster, specifically on the SmackDown side, and then you can reunite Toxic Attraction. Last YouTube question here from Noel. Their first question, or their only question was, top 5 best/worst returns in WWE in 2022. Also, Merry Christmas, everyone, in advance. Merry Christmas to you, No. Thank you so much for all your support of the show, and that goes for all of you guys. Thank you for all your support. Hope you guys have a great holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. If you don't celebrate anything, then, have a great week. You know what I mean? But anyway, best returns. I already talked about it before. I mean, the top 2 have got to be Bray Wyatt and Cody Rhodes. I honestly, for the run that she's had, that's also been very disappointing as well. Ronda's run has been very underwhelming overall. That's another bad run. You said people that Triple H brought back. She was brought back under Vince, so that was different. But the returns overall, people forget about Cody. I guess you can include Stone Cold, but we knew he was coming back at Mania, so it wasn't like a surprise return. I guess you could include that, his return to the ring maybe. I'm talking like showing up, no one knows. We all kind of figured it was Bray, and we all kind of figured it was Cody, but it was still fucking awesome. I would put Cody's above Bray's only, and I was at both, only because Cody's was a bigger deal as far as him coming into the AEW presentation and it being at WrestleMania. Bray's was at fucking, the Wells Fargo Center in Philly, and it closed out the pay-per-view, and it was amazing. And it was amazingly well executed. It was an amazing moment. But it was in front of like a smaller audience, and, I not to downplay it at all, but I just thought Cody's was slightly better. So those would be the top two best returns. Like the returns themselves, you could talk about runs and stuff. We talked about that earlier. Like returns themselves, there haven't been any bad returns, really, that I thought were like, okay, that was flat. I mean, there's been a lot of people Triple H has brought back that people just don't care about initially because they were in NXT. Why the fuck would they care about Candice LeRae popping up on Raw? She was on NXT before she returned on the main roster. A majority of the Raw audience probably did not watch her in NXT. A majority of the Raw audience probably did not watch Tegan Nox or Bronson Reed in NXT. Yeah, Tegan was on the main roster for all of a fucking month last year. It hardly counts. Dexter Lumis, same thing, and all these other people. A lot of these people were in NXT at a time where no one was really watching NXT. Aside from Johnny, he was the only one that got a really good reaction because people kind of were familiar with him being the face of NXT, but that was about it. And they were also in Canada too, so that helped. But anyway, like the only bad returns I can think of, the worst was easily fucking Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon at the Royal Rumble. God, that was awful. From the moment he came out to what he actually did in the match and being in there, I think for the Final Four, was just fucking awful. It was so bad, dude. It was, no one cared. I mean, people in the arena cared, I guess, but I'm watching at home after what was already a bad Royal Rumble match for the men. And the women's I liked. But Shane comes out and I'm like, the fuck are we doing with this? Like, this match had no surprises, but one of the only surprises they did do was fucking Shane McMahon. It was terrible. The women's had some decent ones. Like, it was great to see Melina open the match and then immediately get eliminated by accident. That was a real bummer. But, Ronda coming out, Mickey being in there, not really a surprise. They advertised her in advance. I thought was really cool. Now we go on to the Twitter questions here. We start with, at Iwagoon91, their first question was, it's Wednesday, you know what that means. Your thoughts on Luke Harper and Eric Rowan as a tag team? I thought they were a great tag team. The issue with them, I think if you say who is the best NXT tag team of all time to be on the main roster, it would have to be the Profits. For how long they've been together and have not been broken up, they were lengthy reigning Raw and SmackDown tag team champions and NXT tag team champions. Harper and Rowan had a couple... Didn't they have a couple runs as tag team champions? They did in NXT, not for very long, but they were NXT tag team champions, I believe, for a time. I know they were SmackDown tag team champions in 2018 for several months. Not the most exhilarating reign. That was when they were the fucking Bludgeon Brothers, and that gimmick sucked. Were they champions in 24? I don't think they were, right? Because they lost to the Usos every time they challenged for the titles, I thought. And then I don't know if they won the titles after that. I don't think so. So, no, they were a very good team. That, to me, was probably the best use of Eric Rowan in WWE. Because on his own, he just wasn't very good. He wasn't interesting. The only time Eric Rowan was interesting on his own was on... The most interesting, Eric Rowan was on his own, was when he was solving fucking Rubik's Cubes in late 2014, and then within 2 weeks, and he was kind of getting over a little bit, and then Big Show squashed his momentum by beating him in a fucking stairs match at TLC, and then beating him in a rematch the next night on Raw. So, anyway, yeah, they were a great team. Luke Harper, like I said last week when you asked about him, could have done more on his own, and probably shouldn't have always been in the stable, because he could have done more on his own if they actually bothered to push him. But I enjoyed them as a team. They had some amazing matches with the Usos specifically in 2014, and the New Day in 2018. I was there when they lost the titles to the New Day on SmackDown after SummerSlam in 2018. I think I said 2019. His second question, before he impressed Vince McMahon enough to push him as such, did you think that AJ Styles was going to become a main event talent in WWE when he joined the company? I mean, you can go back and listen to my thoughts, because when he first came into the company, before he even debuted, we all kind of got a feeling he was coming in. January 4th, I'll never forget it. I was at a friend's house at the time, and I saw the news that, AJ and Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows, and Shinsuke. I didn't know who Shinsuke was. I didn't give a fuck about Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson, but AJ coming in to WWE was some of the greatest news I have ever heard as a fan. And I don't know, again, I'm sure I talked about it at the time. You guys probably asked me questions about it 6-7 years ago, so go back and check it out. I don't know what episode that would be. But no, I did not have any realistic expectations that he would be pushed as a main event star. Now, lately, he has not been pushed as such. He was for the first year or two he was in the company. He was WWE champion at one point for a fucking year. He's a 2-time world champion. He really has not been the same since, I don't know, probably since he lost the WWE title 4 years ago, which is crazy. But, he's had some runs as tag team champion, Intercontinental champion, U.S. champion. He hasn't done a lot beyond that, though. He's done a lot, but, not as a main eventer. He's challenged for the world title before, but they just don't see him in the same light for whatever reason. He can still go and have great matches, so I just don't get it. But anyway, no, I didn't. AJ was the face of TNA. They had brought in people from TNA before. They were pushing NXT. This wasn't NXT. He was going to come straight to the main roster, so even early on in those first few months, he was pushed as a mid-carder. I thought, honestly, that was his ceiling. I thought, unless they were going to change his name, he was going to be pushed as a mid-carder, and maybe even lower than that, and feud with people like Jericho and whoever was in that U.S. IC title scene at that point, Miz, people like that. And then he kind of blew up after Mania and had that feud with Roman, and even that I thought might be a one-time thing. I thought he might feud with Roman over the top title, lose, and that would be his peak, and then turning him heel in that feud with Cena ended up being the best thing they could have done. And Vince realized, to his credit, that Cena and Styles was a dream match for a lot of people, and they had one of the best feuds in the last 10 years. So I'm very happy he exceeded expectations and has had as great of a run as he had in WWE as he has in WWE over the last 6-7 years. His third question here, your thoughts on Impact Wrestling this year? I thought they had a very good year. I feel like I've been saying that with them for a couple of years now. They have no buzz. I feel like this year, though, they really did have a great year. It was their first full year with fans. How many fans is the question, but since 2019, because 2020 was COVID, 2021 had half of the year had no fans due to COVID. I thought this was a better year overall for them than last year. It honestly was a great year because they started strong. I remember really liking that Hard to Kill pay-per-view. They did the Honor No More stable that I liked early on, and they kind of lost their way with that later on. I thought Rebellion was a great show. I was bummed I wasn't there, but I was at another show I think that night instead. Rebellion was great. Slammiversary was great. Bound for Glory was a pretty good show. Watching it after the fact, I enjoyed it. Yeah, they really did have a good year. I feel like they've lost a lot of momentum for whatever reason lately. Now, I know it's the holiday season and shit like that, but I don't know. I feel like coming out of Bound for Glory, probably due to the fact they lost a lot of their talent. The first half of the year, Impact had an incredible roster. They lost Jonah. They lost W. Morrissey, who was honestly doing great work. They lost Mia Yim, Chelsea Green. They lost the Good Brothers, who, that's fine with me. They weren't, exactly lighting the world on fire anyway. The Briscoes were there for a time. Eric Young just left. He was doing some real good work as part of Violent by Design. So, yeah, they had an incredible roster, and they lost a lot of those people, and they're probably going to try to bring more people in to kind of... They also had the Kingdom and people like that from Honor No More, and they lost what feels like half of that group. So I don't know. I feel like they kind of need to replenish the pot as far as people they need to bring in to replace those top names. But they did have a great year overall, and I'm hoping for the best for the product in 2023. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland. Great stuff as always. Check out his channel. His first question was, with 2022 nearly over, who would be the 3 to 5 breakout talents from WWE and AEW and why? That's a good question. I actually just did an article for Bleacher Report the other day predicting the potential breakout stars of 2023, and I think I did an article last year predicting the breakout stars of 2022. I don't remember who I put. The breakout stars, Gunther really broke out. He's a guy that came into the main roster no one had any expectations for at fucking all. And then he comes in, even under Vince early on. Maybe he would have lost this push if Vince was still in charge. I'm sure of it. He would still not be champion today. But Gunther came in, has had an incredible run so far. From matches with Ricochet, with Nakamura, with Sheamus especially, Rey Mysterio, And Ricochet, again, recently on SmackDown. The guy's had a great run. He's had some really good pay-per-view matches. He's been booked very strong as champion. He has not been pinned yet since joining SmackDown back in April. He really broke out this year and had an awesome run. Ricochet had a very good second half of the year. He didn't exactly break out. Breakout stars of the year. That is a good question. I'm thinking of like AEW as well. Wardlow did break out. Wardlow broke out and became TNT champion, but then they completely fucking ruined his push. Scorpio kind of broke out as a single star for a little while, but we haven't seen him on the show in like 6 months, so I would not include him at all. Oh, man, I'm trying to think. Who has been a breakout star for both companies? Did they really, not push that many women? I'm trying to think. Liv Morgan, definitely. Liv Morgan would probably lead the list of breakout stars. She's been on the main roster for 5 years now, but, she's always been very popular. She started the year in championship contention. Didn't win, obviously. Contended for the tag titles, had the whole thing with Rhea, and then won Money in the Bank as she should have, and won the fucking title that night. And she was only champion for like 2 or 3 months, but, she was still in a spot of prominence for a while. She got over in that role. So I would definitely include her for sure. I'm trying to think in AEW specifically, though. Like, who has really had, like, a breakout year? Like, oh, yeah, they had such a great year. Joe Keeman has had a very good run so far. Jay Lethal turning him heel is definitely for the best. In AEW, there's just so many fucking people they're not doing much with right now. With the women, Thunder Rosa was having a fun run. Honestly, the probably the biggest breakout star of the year, to be completely honest with you, Jamie Hayter for either company. Like, she was doing good work at the end of 2021, but, like, she was really just the background player in the Britt Baker stable at the beginning of the year, and she's had great match after great match, and went from stepping stone to champion. And she's over, and people fucking love Jamie Hayter. So, honestly, she would probably be, for me, the biggest breakout star of either company this year. Liv Morgan's up there as well. Because I'm trying to think of, like, other men that were like, oh, yeah, they just had a killer year. Matt Riddle, for a while, had a breakout year as a single star, and now he's really cooled off, and now he's off the show completely. Those are the names that come to mind. I'm trying to think of other people, like, around Mania time or currently. Judgment Day has had a real... Probably Dominic, too. Dominic has been around for 2 years now, but as part of Judgment Day has been... I know you fucking hate Dominic, John, but I'm not the biggest Dominic Mysterio fan myself, but he's really coming to his own this year. Rhea Ripley is a character. She was already great. She already held titles previously, but she came into 2022, turned heel, and has had an amazing run for herself on Raw as part of Judgment Day, regardless of the leadership. So that's been a real pleasant surprise as well. Trying to think of anyone else, but those would probably be the top names, though. John's next question, non-wrestling related, but what's your movie of the year, best and worst? I talked a little bit about this a couple weeks ago, but I think the best movie, honestly, I saw all year was Bullet Train. I don't know if you saw that, John. I know it's now on Netflix. It just got uploaded recently, a couple of weeks ago. I fucking love that movie. It wasn't a movie I saw the trailer for originally and was like, oh, I gotta go see it. My brother loves, like, that style of movie. So he was like, oh, I want to go see that movie. We should go see it. We saw it with, I think, my dad at the time. And I was blown away about how great it was, the storytelling, the way it was filmed, the action, the way everything tied together. It was great. The top 3 movies I saw this year were that, Violent Night, I absolutely loved, and Glass Onion. I know you're going to be doing a review. Shout out to John. He's doing a review, I know, of Glass Onion, I think this Friday when the movie comes out on Netflix. We saw it in theaters when it came out last month, and I loved it. The people I was with, my brother and another friend of ours, they liked the first one more. They weren't a big fan of this one. I really, really like Glass Onion a lot. So those are my 3 favorite movies of the year. Those are like movies I remember seeing in theaters. The worst, definitely 2 movies actually. Morbius I thought was obviously awful, but the thing with Morbius was that I went into it knowing it would be awful, and as did the rest of my crowd that was there. It was all like fucking high school boys, probably graduating from high school that week. It was like back in mid-June. And they were a bunch of, like meme artists and shit in the sense that like they were laughing at everything. They were making jokes. It was quite great. So that was a fun experience, even though the movie was ass. The only, like, the worst movie, I think, and I don't think you would agree with this, John, because I know you're a horror movie fan. You're probably going to say Halloween Ends. I actually liked Halloween Ends. I liked Halloween Ends. I liked, I saw Black Adam. I liked Black Adam. I liked I even like the Thor movie, Wakanda Forever, or not, that's Black Panther, I'm a fucking idiot. That was a great movie too, that would be my number 4, by the way. Wakanda Forever was great. The Thor movie I thought was good, I enjoyed it. Wasn't better than Ragnarok, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked Doctor Strange, I thought that was good, the Multiverse of Madness. I even like Sonic, we saw fucking Sonic back in April, and I thought that was good, Sonic 2. I'm sure I've seen other movies since then, but those were the top ones. The worst movie, like I walked out of it and said, that was terrible, was Scream 5, or 6, or whatever it was. I honestly don't even remember. I think it was 5. That movie was fucking ass. The acting sucked. A lot of it just didn't make sense. It was just stupid. And the worst part was, maybe not the worst part, but like, after the fact, I saw it, and I saw all these people talking online, like they loved it. It got actually really good reviews. Again, John, you may have been among those that liked it. I thought it was stupid. And anyone saying, oh, it was better than 2, 3, or 4, I fucking cringe at the idea of watching those movies. If this one was better than those, I can't imagine how much worse those were. The first one I liked a lot. I haven't seen 2, 3, or 4. I think this was 5. It might have been 6. I don't remember. The movie sucked, though. It was not good. So, that was my worst movie of the year. And best was Bullet Train. I haven't seen all the classics. I haven't seen The Whale yet. I want to, actually. I haven't seen Babylon and The Fablemans or whatever. I know those are expected to do real well. I haven't seen Avatar. I don't really give a fuck about Avatar, so I don't know if that's going to be an incredible movie that would change my mind. But those are the ones that I saw, and those are the ones I really liked and also didn't really like. At noob_n_co TV, your thoughts on that intergender match between Akira Tazawa and Rhea Ripley on this week's Raw. I find it very strange and awkward. I loved it. Honestly, I know it was messy at points in the middle. They botched a little bit. But overall, I really, really liked it. I've been saying for a long time now, Rhea should start facing the men. I know why they don't do it. WWE is just, maybe because it's a PG product, they can't, I don't know. Rhea could probably take like an RKO or something. She took a couple moves from Tazawa. For the most part, though, she was on offense for a majority of the match. And it was perfect, too, because, again, realistically, I could buy her as a threat against someone like an AJ Styles, who she's bigger than anyway. Not in like a weight way, but like she's taller than him. She's probably just as strong, if not stronger than him. She's a freak of nature in the best way possible. Like I could buy her as a threat against someone like AJ. You're not going to put her in the fucking ring with Brock Lesnar, obviously, but people like that, I don't see why not. Her and like Finn Balor, if Finn Balor was into the group, honestly, I would buy that. I'm not even a big intergender fan. To me, it's got to make sense. The Tazawa thing made perfect sense because Tazawa was a smaller guy. He's a guy that can eat the loss. And it was perfectly realistic that she would win and that she would beat him up. To me, it was a lot of fun. Tazawa sells well for people. He's great. I really liked what they did there. So, yeah, I was a big fan of that. I don't know how often they can do that sort of stuff, but I thought the way it was executed was well done, with Tazawa not being able to punch Rhea, and she's got to get her comeuppance at some point, whether AJ or someone like Edge spears her or something, I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. I liked it a lot. I hope they do more of that sort of stuff, in my opinion. Didn't bother me at all. At E13A, do you think The Rock will return to WWE in 2023? My prediction is that The Rock will return at some point to WWE this coming year, but will not wrestle a match. I honestly would love to be... it's a win-win, because either I'm right and he doesn't show up, or I'm wrong and he does show up and I'm happy. So, I'll take either scenario. I would like for him to wrestle, but if it's going to be this much of a headache and he's not going to commit to it, and you're not going to have him on the show maybe, then no thanks. But I do think you'll make maybe either an appearance at WrestleMania, because if he can't commit to a build but he can show up, like maybe he could be the special guest referee, which I'm not a big fan of, but it's better than nothing, I guess. Sure, I think he will be back. He's been gone for 3 years now. He's only made 2 appearances, in the last 6-7 years? He was on SmackDown in 2019. We had COVID. He hasn't been back since. Before that, you would have to go all the way back to WrestleMania 32, which was 3.5 years before that. 3.5 years from his SmackDown appearance would be WrestleMania. I could see that. 3.5 years before his October 2019 appearance, the first SmackDown on Fox, was his WrestleMania 32 match against Eric Rowan. Before that, he was on Raw earlier that year, and he was at Mania the year before that. So he's been around a decent amount before that, but he really has not been around at all since 2019, 2016. So I think he will be back next year, but I don't think he'll wrestle. That's my prediction. His next question here. What recent WWE rehires have been severely underwhelming? I mentioned this before, but, Hit Row definitely leads that list. I saw people say Carrion. I can understand that. I don't agree, but I can understand it. I mean, he's really Hit Row is probably the biggest one that comes to mind. I would not say Braun. He's done very well. He's been very over. He's an idiot on Twitter, seemingly, but the stuff that he posts is just very questionable sometimes. But overall, he's had a good return run. The Loomis stuff has dragged on for a while, but that's not his fault. That's the booking and the storytelling and just the fact they've been doing the same shit for months now with those two. So I haven't been a fan of the feud as of late, but his return has been fine, I guess. Tegan just came back. Mia's been back for about a month or so. The OC, I don't really give a shit about Gallows and Anderson, but, I wasn't thrilled about them coming in to begin with. Bronson Reed just came back. Karrion I've liked, like I said. Bray has been one of the best, I would say, although it's gotten repetitive lately. Those would be the big ones. I've enjoyed Johnny. Him doing the comedy shit for the last 2 months hasn't been my cup of tea, but the most severely underwhelming, if you want it, that's the way that the tweet worded it, the WrestleVotes account last week rather. Hit Row. Hit Row is the only people that come to mind of all the, not to say all of them have been home runs, but the ones that come to mind, the only people that I can think of that were severely underwhelming were Hit Row. Their matches have not been great, and the fact that they're just not over, not even a little bit, is alarming. So I just don't really care about them at this point, but they're the only ones to me that have been severely underwhelming. Some have been slightly disappointing. They would be the only people that fall under the category of severely underwhelming so far, and that's because Swerve's not around for them to use. At U13A, last question of the episode, did AEW have a good 2022? In relation to past years, no. Generally speaking, yes, they did. The first half of the year I thought was great for AEW. The second half was a fucking mess. Omega missed most of the year. The whole Punk situation at All Out really put a black eye on the company for a while. I would say from All Out through Full Gear, the company was just not interesting to follow. The shows weren't great. The product wasn't interesting all that much. They have rebounded since Full Gear. Full Gear was a real good show, and they've had some good Dynamite shows since. So I would say they've had a good last month and a half. That 2-month stretch was not good. But overall, 2022 I thought was a good year. Yeah, it wasn't, again, the other years I thought were consistently stronger for AEW. It was definitely better than 2020. 2020 had some great stuff, but 2020 also had no fucking fans due to COVID. So, relatively speaking, it was a better year than that. But it was inconsistent because there were points this year where the product was great, and then other points the product was shit. I guess you could say the same thing about WWE, but they haven't had a change in leadership or whatever. But the first 3 or 4 months of the year for AEW were white hot. They brought in Jeff Hardy, they brought in Samoa Joe, William Regal, Swerve, Keith Lee, among many others, Athena, Tony Storm. And they were just killing it. I didn't like Double or Nothing really at all. I thought that was probably the worst pay-per-view they've done so far. A lot of people will disagree with me on that. Either that or All Out 2020. That show also sucked to me. I was not a big fan of that show at all. But still, I thought they had a great product up until that point. And the summer was okay, but it was just kind of boring because a lot of people got hurt and the storylines weren't great. Tony Khan had to change a lot of his plans. But overall, generally speaking, they did have a good year, and I hope for an even better year in 2023. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 473 here today. I think it's 473. Yes, it is. 473 of #AskGSM for December 21st, first day of winter, 2022. Thank you guys, as always. Actually, now thinking about it, shouldn't they have had Winter is Coming Tonight? I know they like to do the holiday smash show or whatever that Dynamite does. They like to do it right before Christmas. But if today's the first day of winter, and Winter is Coming is the name of the show, and it's Dynamite Day today, it's Wednesday today, you know what that means. Why not do it today? But anyway, whatever. Thank you guys, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Like I said, guys, not only today, but just every single week. The support of the show means the world. Hope you guys have a great holiday. I look forward to Christmas on Sunday. I'll be in, very likely, New York City for the MSG House show on Monday. And then we'll be right back here next Wednesday for the last episode of 2022, episode 474. And not only that, like I said earlier, be sure to vote right now, before the polls close in about a week, the 2022 Year in Review Awards over on WrestleRant.com. You can vote for the match of the year, male star of the year, female star of the year, feud of the year, show of the year, and a lot more, pay-per-view of the year, over on WrestleRant.com from WWE and AEW. Some categories are separate, some categories together. and we'll reveal and review those results next Thursday on WrestleRant Radio. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and I'll catch your ass down the reindeer road.